Welcome back to MovingProfessional.com. So today we're going to go through a half kneeling continuum to promote hip extension. So the first place we're going to start is actually with our hands elevated on blocks in a half kneeling position, but we're going to be bent forward a little bit. The reason that we're going to start here is because the compensation that happens when we get in a half kneeling position is that the pelvis is going to want to orient forward and the lumbar spine is going to want to extend. So we minimize that by putting our belly on the thigh. We start in a little bit more flexed position, and then we can work on creating the pelvic tilt motion necessary while we're a little bit bent forward. So while we're in this bent forward position, we want to still try to think about where the head is relative to the rib cage, relative to the pelvis, and then we're going to direct the pelvis towards a posterior tilt, which can engage the hip extenders here. It's going to be hamstring and glute, and then even the inner thigh. So that would be the first expression of the movement. And then the next progression, as we start to work ourselves up into a more upright position, we could put the forearms on a bench. Now I like to keep my arms framing the leg here, as opposed to having my arms inside the leg, because if this left leg, and I'll show you from the front here, if this left leg sneaks out too much, that's going to move me away from hip extension. So that's another compensation that's common. So to frame this front leg, and whether I have my hands on the ground or on blocks or have my forearms on the bench, is going to be a better position to be in. So as I'm in that position, then I can walk this knee back a little bit now so that it's a diagonal line, knee, hip, shoulder, head as much as possible, and then creating that pelvic tilt to get more extension through that hip there. All right, and I can go top of the foot, which is actually a little bit more extension than on the toes, but you can do either depending on where you are in your mobility. All right, the next progression would be to take this towards a wall, or I'll use a pillar in this case. So we're starting to get a bit more upright, and now I'm just going to have my hands on the wall, so I still have a little bit of support and I can go as high or low as I need to. Still trying to create this pelvic tilt, thinking about head over shoulder, over hip, over knee as much as possible. Sucking the knee up towards the groin, I feel inner thigh, I feel hamstring. This knee, I don't want it to go out too far, so I want to keep it aligned over the hip, aligned over the middle of the foot. All right, so then the next expression here would be, instead of going fully unsupported, I can find a pillar, in this case a squat rack. So I'll show this from this angle here. I'm going to put the back against the pillar, so I have the back of the head, space between the shoulder blade, I tuck my pelvis so the back of the belt is there, and now I have this half kneeling position in upright, but I have support, or I have a reference for my posture, and then I'm doing the same thing, feeling the stretch here, feeling the tuck, feeling the activity in the hip extenders, which is going to be the glute and the hamstring, and then even the inner thigh. And then the last expression would be to just take that pillar away and then do it unsupported, and then just trust my awareness of where my posture is. Take the toes away, I get even more extension there, and then I'm just feeling those same references. So it's abs, inner thighs, hamstring, glute, stacked posture. All right, to progress that even farther, now I'm going to look to elevate my back foot. So I would go through all the same progressions, but then I would just put a block or two on my foot, and then I would focus on the same type of tucking. I could start hands on blocks, then I can go to forearms on bench, go to hands on wall, eventually have back supported. The last expression and the last progression here would be to go to a vertical shin type movement. So I'll put my shin on the pillar here, bring this leg forward, so there's a much bigger stretch now in the front of the thigh. Now the key here is I'll bring these blocks over so I can go through this progression here. Would be, I don't want my butt to come towards the heel, so I want to keep this idea of tucking the pelvis. There's just a bigger stretch here, so that it actually acts as more resistance to me tucking the pelvis. I'll work into there. I can elevate the blocks, then I can eventually go forearms on bench, hands on wall, etc. So that would be the full expression of hip extension and half kneeling. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, you can go to movementprofessional.com. I'll see you next time.